going to take kind of touch on some of the items that we have and how you would put them into BBL. So these are some of the possibilities we're going to look at today. The first thing I want to make you aware of, if you aren't aware of it already, on the library's website there is a faculty services page, and this gives you all of the information you need to know in terms of the kinds of things that you can incorporate and the ways in which you would do that. So if you're on the library's website, there's a link to locations and services, and when you pop open the subsequent page, there are some bullet points, and at the bottom there are 3 links for various types of faculty services. Just one example of them is, for example, if you have a reading list for a course and you want to place that reading list with links into BBLearn, that is possible. And one of the things that we started last summer, sort of spring and summer, it was a project we started with Aaron and colleagues here, and with colleagues of mine in the library, circulation department actually, is a new service whereby if you supply the library with your reading list as a Word document, for example, we'll take care of putting all the links in so that your students are able to access those resources very quickly and efficiently online. So whether it's a chapter of a book or an article, or sometimes even if it's a chapter from a print resource and we're able to get copyright clearance, we can scan it and put it into BBL for you. So that's something brand new that we've done. Here on screen you just see some shots of an article on the left, and down below a chapter from a book. The uptake that we've had on this new service looks like this. We've had a lot of people from health professions incorporate this into their course. So they contact us and provide us with a reading list. There are 86 courses that have done that, including quite a few social work courses. And then there are a lot of the arts and social sciences courses that have had some uptake on it. And after that, we're going to have to work on the rest of you folks in the sciences and other areas to bring you on board. But it's been great because for us, it's our first year doing this, so we wanted to see how it would work out and what the workload would be and if there were any little glitches to get set up, so it's continuing. In order to get to the part of the library's website where it talks about this, you would go to that faculty services page, and then there is this section for reserve materials forms, which has always been there, so you just pick the library that's the appropriate one for you, and then you click on it and you're asked for your net ID and password, so this is probably familiar to a lot of you already. And then you're presented with a little pop-up screen that describes how this works. Now, if it's just one link like that, it's fairly simple, but if you do have a full reading list, you can send us that. I'll show you the place where it's actually uploaded. Our staff do the work of putting in all the links on the reading list, and then we can get permission to have access to your BBL page, and we actually put it right back into your BBL page, so it's there as a list. So you log in like this, you get in, and then you select the course for which you are asking us to put on some reserves, and now what you have a choice of is clicking on the radio button for either upload the reading list or to fill in a form, which is the more traditional type of reserves you do for print and so on. When you click on upload a reading list for, well, it should be BBL rather than OWL, you have a browse button. You just browse your desktop or wherever your reading list is, load it up, and it gets sent off to us, and then we start doing the work of identifying all the correct links, the persistent links for those articles or for the ebooks or whatever it might happen to be, as well as checking for copyright clearance for any print items that might be on your list. So as much as possible, we want to move the students over to electronic access. There may be the odd print item we can't get clearance for, and then we would have to put it on regular print reserve. If you want to do it yourself, maybe you do have 1 or 2 little items, it's not a large reading list. If you want to do it yourself, and for example, here's an ebook, Animal Locomotion, you can certainly do that. I'm going to go through a couple of steps to show you what needs to be done. There are 2 things you need to do in order for your students to be able to access the items off campus without hitting a barrier. A lot of the ebooks and e-journals that we purchase from vendors, we have to sign licenses saying we are only going to allow Dal faculty, students, or staff to access these. So usually if they're on a Dal computer, there's no problem because it's recognized by the vendor's website. They say, oh, it's a Dal person coming through. If they're off campus at their apartment and they're on their own computer, and if they haven't logged into the virtual private network to identify themselves as a Dal person, they may hit a road bump, right? So what you need to do is two things. For the item that you're interested in having them look at, you need to identify its persistent URL. It's sometimes called a stable URL, a permanent link, or a durable URL. Secondly, what you have to do is add a prefix to that URL, an easy proxy wrapper or prefix, and what that does is have the individual, the student, log in with their net ID when they click on the link. So that gives them that smooth doorway. Here again is the same shot I showed you just a little while ago from the Faculty Services page. Right at the bottom there's a link to a PDF that gives a whole lot of screenshots to show you how to create or figure out how to get at these persistent URLs for the items you're interested in. So you just click on the item, the green link, which is for a PDF, and it pops up as just a 4-page PDF. Looks like this, a few screenshots that shows you click here, click there, take this piece of text, and how to manipulate it to get the right kind of URL that you need. DOI can be used as well, but in either case, whether it's a DOI or the URL, you do have to put that little prefix in front that I'll be showing you in a second hour. The DOI is more a set of numbers and perhaps letters. And for articles that have been published, say in the past 7 or 8 years, they're often given a DOI, a digital object identifier, but not all of them. Sometimes small society journals, they don't have that, but if they're online, they'll always have a URL. If you're searching in a database for an article, the URL that you see at the top in the browser, it's not necessarily a URL that identifies the article. Sometimes it's what's known as a session URL, which is for the search session that you use to identify the article in the database. So it won't necessarily take somebody back to that article if you use that, okay? Moving on. So here, for example, is the animal locomotion book. This is a screenshot showing the information about the item in WorldCat, which is our online catalog. So in the upper right-hand corner is a little link that says permalink, and when you click on it, it actually pops open a little screen that gives you that permanent link for that particular item. So the URL at the top of the screen would not have been the right thing to take in that case, but this is. Here's another example. This is from JSTOR Database. It's an article from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in the States. So your article in this case has what's called a stable URL, so they put it right underneath the name of the publisher. So that's what you would pull out. Here is the little prefix that you need to put in front of either of those URLs, and that little prefix is shown on that 4-page PDF, which is in our Faculty Services page, right? So when you pop that open electronically on your desktop, you can just copy and paste that little prefix, and here's what you do. Here, for example, is the stable URL in pink or cream. You put the easy proxy prefix or wrapper in front, and you're all set to go. So that URL that you see at the bottom is the one that you would use as a web link in BBL. Here's another one for a DOI that you were asking for, Alan. So if the DOI, which is listed in pink there, is what you found for a particular article, again, you put the easy proxy in front. And actually, the easy proxy for a DOI is a little bit different. As you see, it's longer, and at the end of it, it says dx.doi.org. But again, it's just a copy and paste thing, one in front of the other, and you're set to go. Moving on to some of the other types of resources that you can add to your pages. This is one of our online library guides. They're sometimes called subject guides or lib guides, depending on who you talk to. We have these for every subject that's taught here on the campus. This is Patrick Ellis's dentistry guide. A lot of the guides have this tab structure across the top, and it allows students to click on the databases link that gives them the relevant databases for their subject area. Sometimes there are subject-specific encyclopedias if you want to direct them towards a particular reading, as well as style guides, maybe lists of journals for their area. And this can be massaged a bit if you talk to your librarian liaison to give you the kinds of resources that you feel are important for the students. So you can actually use the URL for the subject guide, put that into your BBL page, if it's a course where you feel the students are going to need a wide variety of resources. You don't necessarily want to direct first-year students towards a big subject guide like this. It's way too much for them, okay? But the older students, or students in upper years, I should say. This is a guide that I created for students who are in the 2000 level biology courses. There are 6 separate courses, and working with Allison and some of her colleagues in the department, we came up with a guide that pulled together resources that students in all of those classes could use. So this is the tab for primary sources. So this is when students are either trying to locate an article with a piece of software called the citation linker, or if they're moved over to actually searching for articles on a topic, they're going to want to use a database like biological abstracts. So just to the right here, we have the link for biological abstracts, and then below it there's a link to a PDF that has lots of screenshots showing them how to do a search and also how to modify their search if they get too many results or too few results. So this was a guide that was created with very specific purposes in mind. Your subject liaison librarian is usually pictured on the guide, and all of the contact information for the person is there, which is great for students, especially if they're honor students or graduate students. They can always directly contact the person. And the way that you can get to the subject guides, please don't tell me you're not aware of subject guides because I will wring my hands. There is on our library website a link to subject guides. That takes you to this page, which lists all of the guides by faculty, as well as in the upper left-hand corner some of the guides that are important throughout the whole curriculum. So we have things like open access, there's a Writing Center resource guide, there's one for the Center for Learning and Teaching as well, and others that relate to mobile access and using ebooks that you may be interested in yourselves. The URL that you would use in BBL is shown on each subject guide just above the tab structure. So you can use that as the proper URL. These guides are open to anybody in the world, so they're not under that NetID lockdown. Also on our library's website, we do have instructional types of podcasts or tutorials. Often they're very quick, maybe 3 or 4 minute types of things. To get to those, you click on Using the Library. And then on the right-hand side, there's a panel that has the word tutorials, and on the subsequent page, there's a link to online tutorials. So that takes you to a list, quite a variety of tutorials that are available, everything from how to use particular kinds of databases from certain companies that we buy the databases from. And they have lots of screenshots and voiceovers to describe to the students how to use these. Some of them have to do with steering clear of plagiarism and, for example, how to write a proper bibliography according to a style. And others in the health sciences, for example, have to do with evidence-based practice and that type of thing.
Sorry, those are videos in other languages?
Yes, they are.
Oh, cool.
How do I go backwards here?
Just the back arrow?
Yeah, better. Okay. Yeah, those are videos that we created a couple of years ago, and I believe what we did is we liaised with the International Students Office at the time and got an idea from them about the languages that might be of interest, so that students who are coming here from other countries who may not be as familiar with the library structure, the kind of either public or academic library structure we have here, just to give them an idea of how libraries work here. So we did them in a number of languages, and I believe that there were student volunteers from different subject areas who volunteered to do those. So here's just some screenshots of the podcast we have for Web of Science, again showing students how to do a search for a topic, how to click on the Get It at Dal button to get the actual article. And in order to put the URL for that type of item into BBL, in this case, you just look at the top of the browser bar to get the URL. Again, this is a resource that's not restricted. Anybody from around the world can use these. And in fact, sometimes we find some from other academic libraries in other parts of the world that we put on our LibGuides rather than reinventing the wheel if it's a really good podcast. Writing and style guides, I mentioned these before, but we do have a link where we list some of these, like the CSE guide, the APA guide. It's not the big brick that we have as an ebook or anything like that. It's more of just a quick guide that might be 6 or 8 pages long, and it gives the highlights, the important information about how to structure each reference in a bibliography, some of the key rules for that particular style, for example. So they're PDFs. And here are just 2 examples. So when they pop open on your screen as a PDF, again, there's a URL at the top, and you can just copy and paste that into BBL. Again, this is a resource that's free to anybody around the world to use and share. Just to taper off here, again, I encourage you to contact your subject liaison librarian if you do want to make sure that you're touching on all the kinds of library resources that you could incorporate into a particular course. They're a great resource person to help you figure that out. Sometimes we get new resources and it's hard to get the word out to everybody, and there are so many messages coming at us as well on email that it's good to sit down and have that one-on-one conversation with the librarian. So just again to review, what I've touched on is the ways in which you can put particular web links into BBL for these kinds of items: electronic reading lists, databases, articles and ebooks, library guides, podcasts, or style guides. If you want to do it yourself, it's fairly easy and straightforward to do it, but as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want us to do it, it'll save you a lot of time if you send us the reading lists, and we'll be happy to work on that with you.